The arts can engage us emotionally in a compelling way. Their impact can be so strong that they literally get under our skin. This phenomenon is called emotional goosebumps. It reflects the fact that the experienced emotion has reached a peak intensity. But how do goosebumps emerge? Which emotions trigger them? And what happens in our body and our brain in these moments? At the Max Planck Institute for Empirical Aesthetics in Frankfurt, Germany, emotional goosebumps are a subject of scientific investigation. The neuroscientist and hobby pianist Eugen Wassiliwizky has devoted himself extensively to understanding this phenomenon.
Emotional goosebumps differ from physiological goosebumps, which we experience in moments of cold, because the former lack a thermoregulatory function. The cold-related goosebumps basically trap a layer of warm air around the body in order to prevent heat loss. For emotional goosebumps, this protection is unnecessary since we are not freezing in these moments. However, both types of goosebumps share a basic physiological mechanism. Simply put, each body hair originates in a so-called follicle underneath the skin surface. This follicle is connected to the upper layer of the skin by a tiny muscle that is usually relaxed so that the body hair rests on the outer surface. However, once this muscle is contracted, it pulls at the follicle, thereby bringing the hair to an upright position and also making the skin surrounding the hair protrude. When we see many of these protrusions, we call this phenomenon goosebumps. And the good news is that this phenomenon is measurable.
In order to measure goosebumps objectively, the researchers of the Max Planck Institute construct a special camera, the so-called goosecam. For this purpose, they first develop a three-dimensional model for the casing of the goosecam. The completed model is sent to a 3D printer, which brings the digital model into physical existence, layer by layer. Due to the synthetic material, the final print's weight doesn't exceed 50 grams. The finished casing provides a spot for a mini camera to be mounted. Furthermore, LEDs are placed within the casing in order to illuminate the interior of the box. Finally, a green LED will send short flashes of light into the video, so-called triggers, which serve as orientation markers within the recording.
In an experiment, the goosecam is mounted on the arm of the participant. Additionally, we attach further instruments in order to collect data on the facial expression of the participant, or his physiological arousal that is inferred from the activity of the sweat glands or his cardiac activity.
Once all of the measurement devices are in place, the experiment can start. While the participant is listening to a musical piece or watching a movie clip, the goosecam continuously films a small section of the participant's skin surface. These video data are analyzed later using special software called GooseLab. In the analysis process, GooseLab goes frame by frame through the video and identifies segments that show a goosebump pattern. In this way, a profile emerges of which periods of goosebumps stand out clearly from the rest of the data.
Once we have identified a period of goosebumps, we can ask two different questions. First, what happens at this very moment in the body and in the brain of the participant? And second, what happens at this moment in the stimulus? If it's a film clip, what scene is he watching during this time period? If it's a poem, which words is he hearing when we see goosebumps in the camera?
In this analysis, the words with higher potential for goosebumps are highlighted by their color coding. Investigating the underlying mechanisms enables the researchers to predict moments of goosebumps, even for people who are exposed to a stimulus for the very first time. But what happens in the participant's body when they experience emotional goosebumps?
On the side of the participant, such periods of goosebumps indicate a so-called mixed emotional state. How do we know that? Well, in our physiological studies, we observe during goosebump periods a contraction of a certain facial muscle, the so-called corrugator above the inner eyebrow. This contraction reflects the experience of a negative emotion, such as sadness. From our neuroimaging studies, on the other hand, we see for the same periods an increased neuroactivity in the reward-related grey matter structures deep in the brain. When we combine these two pieces of evidence, we can conclude that the participants experience both a negative emotion and pleasure at the same time. This mixture of antagonistic emotional components is traditionally called being moved.
Being moved is probably not the only emotion that can be accompanied by goosebumps. In their new experiments, the researchers are investigating other emotional states, such as fear elicited by horror movies. In this case, fear is presumably again mixed with pleasure. Additionally, the researchers now make use of several goosecams attached to different locations. This way, they can test whether and how goosebumps travel through the body.
In our current studies, we combine all signals. We now have an MRI-compatible goosecam which we can operate in strong magnetic fields. We also apply the measurement of facial expression inside the scanner. In this experiment, participants listened to musical pieces and recited poems which they themselves have selected for the study. While they listen, we simultaneously record the data from all their measures. This way, we can test the coactivation hypothesis of negative emotion and pleasure in a more rigorous way. Using goosebumps as a window into complex emotions allows us to learn not only a great deal about the neuro-orchestration of these states, but also about the mechanisms of the stimulus, which are powerful enough to send shivers down our spines.
Would you be interested in taking part in one of these studies? Can you remember 5 poems and 5 musical pieces that always give you goosebumps? Then write an email to the following address or visit the website of the Max Planck Institute for Empirical Aesthetics.